Today we need to get into Jimin's father posting something on IG and something interesting about that. And then we have people saying Jimin might have a girlfriend and why they're saying that. We also have a pre-order situation with Jimin and people protesting this. So hey Dumplings, it's Dave. Decide hater or not, make sure you're subscribed with the notification bell on. Make sure you join us fangirling on Patreon with some free content on Saturdays now, and let's go. It's really insane how often what I am about to talk about happens and people still get so upset. I'm just so curious how people still get very upset when this has happened every time and it's always been okay. So what am I talking about and what's going on? People were protesting since Jimin's album is supposed to be out soon. They wanted to be able to pre-order. I guess the pre-orders have not been available yet. But typically pre-orders won't come out until maybe a week or two before the actual release. I actually don't know how legal or how much it counts on the charts if the pre-order is released too early. Now this happens all the time with the label. Typically, they do not forget to release it, or they forget to do it in general because they have a different plan of action and a different rollout strategy. Now, I find this really interesting because I think that a lot of people take this way too seriously, and they think that more action or strategy is always better when that isn't always the truth. The majority of the community doesn't really understand restrictions or doesn't understand specific rules of streaming platforms. However, labels and whoever is in charge typically do. Now, what really annoyed me was that the tweets that people were copy and pasting. So if you're not aware of what happens when people get upset and they want to protest something, they take one person's tweet, one thing that someone wrote, and they will copy and paste it over and over again and tweet as much as they can. And then other people will jump on and do the exact same thing. But the tweet basically said that the label was ignoring this request, and that was very unprofessional of them. I mean, I do get annoyed when customer service or when a company ignores something that I send in, but it doesn't really categorize itself as unprofessional if they do that. Professional just means if they are getting paid to do their job, i.e. if there's someone who sets up tables and they're getting paid to set up tables, then they are a professional table setter-upper. Or even if they're not doing a good job, they're still considered a professional because they're getting paid for it. So even if they don't respond, they're still professionals, or that doesn't mean that they're unprofessional, they're just not doing their job. However, they are still probably getting paid to do that job for someone else. And the reason why I bring this up is because I feel like when they copy and paste these things, they're copy and pasting a blurb or a paragraph that they feel represents how they feel in the most accurate, smart way. However, I don't think that this is the one that they should be copying and pasting from. This, to me, was a text that seemed like it was written by a 4-year-old. Now, obviously, this I think is so funny because I think that people not knowing what they're doing or what they're saying and them not being professional, but then calling other people unprofessional is very funny. However, I think another topic that is not addressed as much as it should be is Jimin's dad and what he recently posted. If you're not aware, Jimin's dad has a cafe that you can visit, and a lot of people visit the cafe just to see Jimin because his dad has the posters up, and a lot of people even just go see the dad and see Jimin's family. And it was to the point where Jimin's dad would even do autographs of himself and even have a cafe Instagram page where he would occasionally post Jimin too. And this has gotten a lot of backlash, and I'm sure you can see why, because it looks like the father is using Jimin's name to promote the cafe. Now, I don't know what the family dynamic is, but in my opinion, it seems like Jimin is behind the cafe too. Like this is something he created with his father, because where else did Jimin's father get the money to even open it? So people were specifically commenting about everyone who showed up to the cafe, got autographs, and called all of them stalkers. And I'm definitely wondering if people know what the definition of stalkers is, because this is definitely not what a stalker is. People were even upset that people online were reposting photos from the dad's cafe's Instagram account. First of all, people showing up at a cafe that is publicly listed, and also one that the dad has even had a table set up specifically to do autographs, is not stalker behavior. Even traveling to Korea and going to a restaurant is not stalker behavior. The best way to analyze whether something is stalker behavior or not is if this was applied to anyone else, is this stalker behavior? However, it's not like that. People accuse others of stalker behavior just because someone else gets to do something that they want to do, which is meet Jimin. They're accused of being stalkers. I was even more shocked when every time people post something about Jimin's dad's cafe, people scream stalker. It seems like, to me, these people just feel like they would never get a chance to go to the cafe, and then they just want all those photos deleted. The cafe Instagram page has 300,000 followers. If you didn't like the attention, the account would be private, and not the name of the cafe. cafe? Do some of these people know that if a business doesn't get business or customers, they'd have to close down? People were definitely wondering about Jimin's relationship with his dad and why it seemed like Jimin was all over this cafe. However, this is all part of the business model, and it's a really smart move for any of the BTS members or really any K-pop idol to eventually start a traditional business, because no one is famous forever, nor does anyone want to be famous for their whole life. I imagine the boys one day wanting to have a family, and they would want to have a more low-key life. Also, with the amount of money they have made, they could live their life, have kids, and really enjoy it. Speaking of relationships, people were definitely talking about relationships lately. There was that relationship with Song Dae-eun, and people having an opinion on that. But then now there is a new rumor due to something that he actually posted. Jimin had a bunch of things come out to promote his album. This includes things like concept photos and those things. One of the concept photos was a photo of Jimin in a white crop top and some black pants that had a lot of people talking. It looked very punk rock, and it reminded people of an old album that had come out, specifically the Avril Lavigne album a long time ago, specifically one where she was wearing that white shirt and pants. And of course, you know, in K-pop, when people wear the same clothes or people have similar styles, people tend to think dating. And so people think that Jimin might be in a relationship with Avril. People were now thinking if Avril might have visited Jimin at the camp to go see Jimin, since they might be together, and I would think that this is the most ridiculous rumor that I had ever seen. Because how on earth would Jimin and Avril even speak to each other or date? Because Avril doesn't know Korean and Jimin doesn't know English. So these are the craziest things I've ever heard, because I find it so odd to even hear how they would even come up with such a rumor. People tend to think that everyone else's life is so wrapped into BTS, just like they are, and they feel like everyone else would die or do anything for BTS. However, as a joke, I think this is interesting as well, because I think that people would think it's real, and other people that think that the two might be working together or what have you, and I think it's totally cool. I would love to see them working together and making music together. And honestly, I would love to see that as well. I would love to see their voices blend together, and I think honestly they could blend together so well. I think Jimin's voice is so high and Avril's voice is also high, but like smokier, and I think that that could make a great track. Unfortunately, I don't think Avril thinks about Jimin, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just don't think that their paths have ever crossed before, and I don't think that they've ever made music similar to each other. Avril's music is more rock and Jimin's music is more softer pop. And so I don't think that they've ever crossed paths like that. This of course means Avril probably doesn't really think about Jimin. She would not be talking about him or even making trips to the military for him. And when this rumor comes out and people are thinking it's true, it would even result in people attacking Avril for not wishing Jimin a welcome home when he comes back. And then Avril gets death threats for what? For a rumor that wasn't even true? And I hate blaming the rumor rather than blaming the people who are just stupid to believe it and act on it, because acting on something like that and then attacking others based on information that's not true is totally the dumbest thing I've ever heard of, and it's most common within K-pop. Like, I genuinely do not see this in any other genre. I wish other genres do this too, because I could at least say that it's normal or that it exists in other places as well. But there's something in K-pop. It's like a drug. It does something to people and they get obsessed and they can't think properly. Let me know what you think. Make sure to check out Patreon for more videos. Link down below. Thanks for the comment right here. Love you. Bye.